myself and Dr. Usha Vasthare. I'll be referring to her more as Usha aunty. We have put together and certain common norms. I would say we would like this entire 4-day event to be as much interactive as possible. People to share their experiences, their thoughts, and whatever comes to them at that point of time. We have also planned very structured discussion between. But however, as we are going through our presentations, if there are any questions that you think need immediate attention, then please feel free to stop us there, raise your hand, and we'll be more than happy to take that question immediately. But if you can hold on, do write it down on a piece of paper, and in the discussion time that we have slotted in between, you're most welcome to ask those questions or any clarifications. As far as possible, general sharing or responses, it would be nice to keep it to a minimum. But any doubts or clarifications, like give priority to that. We are of course open to even staying back beyond 8:30 if anybody has any pressing needs to clarify. I hope that's okay, Ramesh bhai.
Yes, yes, certainly.
Thanks. So with that, we will get started with this 4-day workshop on ultimate mantra for well-being. Before I hand it over to Ushanti to give an introduction, we will just start with a quick 3 to 4 minutes of mindful breathing practice. For that, I would like to invite all of you to get centered within yourselves. You may gently close your eyes. Let us keep our back and neck straight and alert. And let us take some slow and deep breaths. And let us feel this breath within our body. Let us observe the breathing. Notice our breath with a calm and quiet mind. And let us feel privileged and grateful for this pranic force, life force within us, manifesting as breath. Let us now slightly narrow down our awareness and feel the breath inside the nostril. Let us find out whether we are predominantly breathing from the right nostril or left nostril. Or maybe simultaneously from both the nostrils. Just feel the nostril dominance at this point of time. And by observing the breath, let us collapse our world and get deeply anchored to the present moment. Here and now and here. And let us maintain the awareness of each and every breath. Throughout the session, let us also remain anchored towards our breath so that we can relate all the neuroscience concepts in context to ourselves, our own experiences. This simple practice of observing our slow and deep breaths is called Sukha Pranayama. With that, we may gently rub our palms over each other, generate enough confidence. Keep your palms over your eyes, eye muscle. Massage your facial region, neck region, and gently open your eyes. Thank you. More details about the art or the scientific aspects behind mindful breathing will be covered as we go through this workshop. Right now, to begin with, we thought we'll just give you a small experience of this practice. And with that, I would request Dr. Usha Vasthare, Usha Aunty, start. Thank you.
Namaste and good morning to you all. From such a high plane to something very mundane, let's get into this. Let me start sharing the slides before I even start. Let's see. All right. Yes. You have all answered the questionnaire that Ravish sent the questionnaire to you. And we have your answers. And we have compiled your answers from the questionnaire for the registered participants. And let's try and take a look at the data. We have just clubbed together into different topics like interpersonal relationships. And these are the issues that you have brought about. So we have divided your answers into different issues. Certainly, you're all concerned about health and work-life balance. WLB means work-life balance. And some people have talked about meaninglessness in lives. We have put it in a positive way about figuring out the purpose of life. And some of you have issues with technology, which is very understandable in this day and age. So when we looked at your answers, the data, we were surprised to see even much more than health issues, you were kind of concerned and needed some solution and answers for issues with relationships, IPR, interpersonal relationships. And of course, health. And then how do you balance your personal life and professional life? And we were also surprised to see the word meaninglessness in your answers with quite a few people, and especially with from one of the youngest participants in this. And I think we have the age range of anywhere from late 20s to 70 years. So rather than looking at it from meaninglessness, we are going to look at it from the purpose of our life. What is the purpose of our life? And as I said last but not the least, the issue of using technology, especially the phone and the social media and whatnot. Some of it, we're not going to address it directly. However, you will be able to figure out the answers by the end of the fourth day during this workshop. And still, if certain things are not unanswered, you may also send your questions after each session to Ravish, and then he will share the questions with us, and then we will incorporate the answers in the following day's session. So with this data in mind, let's just move forward and then see what do we think about well-being. So this workshop is about well-being, right? Of course, we do look at the physical wellness, the health, physical health is one of the primary ways to keep us fit and well. So at any age, we're going to be concerned about our physical activity. And again, the most recent research shows, I'm just going to say this in a very succinct manner, but as we go along, you will understand what this means. The recent research shows that especially the current lifestyle that we are all leading, including homemakers for that matter, is sitting on the couch and doing things or just standing, right? So much so, there is a very popular phrase saying that sitting is the next smoking. In other words, the ill effects that we find in smoking, we also see such effects why just because of our lifestyle, just sitting for hours together. Trust me, even though I know all of this, I'm also the culprit. You forget, and then especially if you're truly focusing and doing things, and if you're highly disciplined, you have to be even more concerned about this phrase, sitting is the next smoking. So again, the way we can remember is to be able to share. And again, many a times I put every hour alarm for every hour on my phone and get up and then walk for 5 minutes every hour on the hour. If it is not possible for us to take either half-hour break or 1 hour break, on certain days it is not going to be possible, right? So that is how you need to be figuring out creative ways for our wellness. That is how life has become right now. And of course, it's all about mental health. And if I may ask Ravish Bhai to hide this panel on the screen, either Vasant or Ravish, I would appreciate because it's covering up the slide. Okay. So as much as physical health is important, the mental health is equally important, if not more. We understand this, and especially with Dr. Shah's presentations on emotions and health, you're well aware of the importance of mental health in our well-being. Why? Why do you ask this? Or why do I say this? Because we understand that there is a very close connection between our body and mind. Whatever happens at the body level gets reflected at the level of mind. And we might be hale and healthy, but if there are certain issues mentally in the sense, even a slightest tiff in the morning before going to work, or a little argument with our teenage son, how many a times, if we are sensitive enough, we understand how that affects our physical health also. In other words, we know that there is a very close connection between body and mind. One second. Is it possible to hide this top panel, Vasant, or is that something that I need to do myself on, at least on my screen?
Yes, you have the some few controls over the screen
Yeah.
where be written to hide the panel.
I
The
see.
buttons will
Hide.
be
Okay.
the buttons
Oh,
would be
that is
on the panel itself. You have to check by clicking on the three dots or
yes, got it. Got it. Thank you. All right. One second. Yeah. So we understand that there's a very close connection between our body and mind. But Is that all there is to it? But we say there is something more that is missing out here. We are focusing mostly on our physical health and mental health. And what is that? What is that something more? It is much more than this mind body connection. And then we add that plus. What is that plus? What should we be concerned other than taking care of our physical health and mental health? Is there something else? We will look into that, and then you will get the answer at the end of this session. So until then, you can hold on, and then we'll ask you if you have any answers for this, not right now. And then let us see, what is that factor that is equally important, but I say it's even more important than just taking care of our physical health and mental health. And what is that? We will look into that as we go along. So the rest of today's session, this flow is only for today's session, goes like this. We have just covered the mind, body, and also behavior connection. Yes, because we only look at our mind and body connection, but it also has an effect on our actions, on our habits, on our behavior itself. So apart from this, also there is something that we will see what it is as we go along. And then we're going to try and understand the difference between wellness and health. And we're going to understand health and wellness through our flagship concept of Yogakshema, which is whether we need to just survive through this life, or is it to evolve through this life? So from this angle, we're going to look at health and wellness. And also just understanding our own health and wellness from this point of evolving or surviving through this life is not enough. We know ideally we need to be evolving, but we also need to understand what is it that is preventing us to evolve as better human beings. We're going to look into that. What is it that is preventing us to evolve? And something different and unique is understanding this key symptom cycle. Once we get to know this is all evidence-based research that we are talking about, even this key symptom cycle, we will understand how health, wellness, whether to evolve through this, how do we evolve, all of that, it comes into play with understanding that key symptom cycle. And finally, at the end, we're going to understand what is that plus, other than just mind-body connection. There is something more that we need to look at. And what is that? We're going to get into that at the end of the session. With this, let me ask you a rhetoric question, no need to answer. We know, what is it that everything begins from what, right? Yes, this is not a philosophical question. It might sound like it, but I'm looking for a very scientific answer. Where does this all begin from, right? And we say everything under the sun begins with a thought. We kind of know, but we have not really thought about this. That is the paradox of this thinking process, you know. So let us keep this in the back of our mind for the rest of the 4-day workshop, that everything begins with a thought. And then let us see, figure out what we mean by that in different layers as we go along. So before we go any further, I just want to take few minutes break here and see, do you have any specific questions with this introduction in mind? And you have given the answers to those questionnaires. And is there anything very specific as a question? As Vasant said, it is not about right now sharing the experiences. If you have any specific questions, this is the time to ask. And yeah, Ravish bhai, either you can put it on the chat and Ravish would read it out, or you can unmute yourself and then ask the question. Any questions, Ravish? Not really.
No questions.
Okay, so if we can move on. All right. So now we're going to take a look at the difference between health and wellness from the point of view of evolving. So over to you, Vasant, and we'll see.
Yeah, sure, Auntie.
I'll come out of this. You're going to use your own slides, yeah?
That's right. Yeah.
Madhuji has shared with us that overthinking is a big problem.
Huh? Come again?
Overthinking is a big problem.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see as we go along how can we manage them rather than looking it as a problem. If we understand why that happens, we will certainly keep that in the back of our mind while we cover up the next 4 days, because each topic we're going to delve deeper in the next 4 days rather than giving everything on the first day. So we will certainly look into that. Very no, pertinent question, Madhu. So, what is this overthinking? What is intrusive thoughts? What are repetitive thoughts? Why does this happen? Is there any significance for this? We will look into that, and how to manage. It's not about controlling our thoughts. However, understanding our mind, how it works, the workings of the mind, workings of the brain, then we will see how we can manage, first of all, our thought processes and then go into overthinking. Very pertinent question.
Yeah. Thanks, Auntie. I will just share my slides. Just a second. Got it. For some reason, I'm not able to share the PPT. I'll just see.
Vasant bhai, you need to open the presentation in the background
Yeah, that's
and then click the share button so that it will be visible in the window, which window to share.
Do you
Yeah,
want me to share, Vasant?
I can see all the windows except my PPT. So
You can close the PPT and then
open it
reopen.
again.
It
Okay,
happens
let me do
sometimes.
that.
Yes, you can close and reopen it.
Yeah, the slide's visible now.
Yes, Vasanji.
Okay. Is my audio clear, Ravish bhai? There was
Yes,
some problem
yes.
with the
The
audio.
audio is very clear and volume is also very nice.
Okay, great. Yeah. So,
Vasant, do you want to go into the, yeah, thank you.
we would just like to quickly go over um, and in what context we'll be using the words health and wellness and the definitions of that. All of you know what is health. The famous definition from World Health Organization that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just merely the absence of disease or infirmity, not just merely what health shows on our various diagnostic reports, but essentially how we feel about ourselves. So health, this is the way we have been all looking at health in terms of absence of, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Now, we'll just contrast this with wellness and try to keep this concept of wellness in mind as we go through the rest of the presentation, and also look at health and wellness from the survive evolve concept. Now, wellness is defined sort of very completely differently in a way, by and large, from a definition point of view, nothing to do with health. It is essentially enthusiasm to learn, keep learning till our last breath, learning with that sense of enthusiasm, awe, and wonder on a day-to-day basis. Enthusiasm to be compassionate, to be loving, zest for life, living our life with that enthusiasm, even up to our last breath, even on deathbed. Now, that's something very, very drastic, I'm sure, but Usha Aunty will be addressing about this aspect also, about what does zest for life mean even to a deathbed. So by and large, I would say leading a life which is enriching and fulfilling with emotional stability, clear thinking, ability to love and serve, of course, ability to embrace change. As we know, the change is most common factor in today's fast-paced technological era, digital era, and able to embrace these uncertainties in a more healthy manner. So try to keep this definition in mind with regards to wellness as against health. And we'll also see how health and wellness are in some sense interdependent, but in some sense they're also independent. Some of you also had questions about being able to lead a meaningful life or a meaninglessness in their life, and also look at wellness even from that point of view, being able to live a more enriching and fulfilling life, which will primarily come under the category of wellness. Health by primarily would say keeping our physical and mental health um, good and being able to do our day-to-day activities. So with this definition of health and wellness, let's look at 4 different scenarios as we are going through our life situations. If our health is, let's say, declining, and we have all experienced the situation, even with something like a common cold or a fever, how it affects our wellness, how it affects our thought process, how it affects um, maybe even our relationships at home. So so when the health goes down, our wellness also tends to go down. This is something that we have all experienced. Now let's look at the second row, which is in fact, um, I would say, a lot more common, particularly when we are looking at wellness in its truest sense, in terms of having a zest for life. Quite often we have seen that our health is fine. Um, all the diagnostics that we do, the test reports that we achieve, and all of them say that your health is fine. At the same time, we feel that there is something missing in our life. We are not able to lead our life with the same degree of enthusiasm that we had when we had our first job or our first child or any new project that we launched onto. Although we have been doing that activity, but somewhere we are not enjoying our life as much as we have experienced the enjoyment earlier in our life. So this again is a situation more common, I would say, during the middle age. But in some sense, I'm glad that some very young participants also have said that their health is fine, everything else is fine, material facilities are fine, but they do not experience a sense of enthusiasm or joy or a fulfillment in their life. So this is what I'm putting it together in this second row. Now, as we go through our life and the aging process, as some of you might be also having old parents, and you would have experienced that in several situations, although they are going through their typical aging issues, let's say knee pain, back pain, or slowing down and things like that. However, their wellness is high. Their enthusiasm to live is very high. The zest for life is still high. They want to keep learning. And that's what has been projected in this third row. Even if the health is going down, typically as we go through the aging, still, how can we keep our zest for life and being able to lead a life in a more fulfilling way? When I look at this third one, I tend to recall primarily my grandmother. During those, when I was a child, about 10, 12 years of old, um, I would see that she would be busy right from early in the morning to late at night, catering to so many different generations, catering to so many different guests, cooking for all of us, and at the same time, having a very busy day, same time having time for us at the end of the day to tell us stories and put us to sleep. So if I recall her own life experience, I would primarily say that it would fall under this third row, where although with her age, there were some health issues, but her enthusiasm and zest for doing whatever is needed for the family would continue to be high. The last one is more of a idealistic situation that I put here, more for completeness, saying that yes, our health is also fine throughout our life, and even the wellness is also doing great. We'll just leave it as more for the sake of completeness. But if we look at this health from the last row point of view, I would say health over here is something that we're saying that all the organs of our body are aging uniformly, and not just that the um, knees are aging faster than other organs, or the eyes are aging faster, or the liver or the pancreas is aging faster, and so on. So all the uh, organs of the body are aging uniformly, and the person is naturally slowing down with the age, but at the same time, the wellness is high. So that's a very idealistic situation to achieve, but At the same time, I would say let's more focus on the third and the fourth rows over here about how do we keep our wellness going high. Now, coming to the survive evolve concept, let's go back to the first two rows. In the first two rows, we have seen that irrespective of our health, our wellness is not great. And this is what we call it as a survival mode of our life. Particularly the first row over here is more of me-centered, living a life for myself, more of a self-valuing process that's going on in our thought process. The second one, in fact, is something more to be concerned about. I would say even if our health is fine, why is our wellness not as great? And even in this scenario, although we are successful materially, financially, let's look at why are we not able to lead our life with the same degree of zest or enthusiasm compared to the whatever we have experienced earlier in our lives. So in both these situations, we are essentially going through survival mode in our lives. While the last two situations, again, irrespective of our health, how is our zest for life? How are we looking at life in its totality in the most holistic way? How are we able to see the interconnectedness of the various facets of our life? Interconnectedness not just at our personal or a professional level, but its interconnectedness also at the challenges that we see at the societal level or even at a global level. That's one of the reasons we had this time designed that questionnaire so that you identify your challenges at all the four levels, and hopefully over the course of these 4 days, understand their interconnectedness, and you should be able to get the solutions at each of these and embrace this concept of wellness in its most deepest sense. So this is one of the major aspects with regards to survive and evolve concept, one of the very important aspect that we're going to keep coming back on as we go through the next 3 days of our presentation. So with that, I think now we can take some questions, and you may raise your hands, and Ravish Bhai will guide us through the sequence. Anybody has any questions? Specifically with regards to health and wellness.
Madhuji. Madhuji, please unmute and ask the question. Madhuji, your mic is not working. We are not able to hear you. You can reconnect the Zoom meeting and put your question in the chat box if you're not able to unmute. Other participants may also ask questions if you have, either by putting it in the chat box or you can just unmute yourself and ask. Bankimji.
Namaste, Usha ji, and Namaste, Vasant ji. First of all, the what you call the beginning has been the great. ये जो 4 दिन का सेशन शुरू हुआ है, तो आई थिंक क्वेश्चन और कमेंट दोनों कंबाइंड है कि at the very back end of our mind, we understand all this. Okay, सब समझते हैं, right? But you wake up in the morning and whether you want to hear, whether you want to see, right? अपनी जो इंद्रिया है उसको तो बंद नहीं कर सकते हो, और जब इंद्रिया खुली है, then those senses automatically pick up whatever is happening around you, right? Um, and then obviously, you um, get into one of those four roles, okay? Whether you want to, be affected or not. So, the dilemma, it's all about dilemma. And I think hopefully, probably, we'll have some more clarity and how to overcome this dilemma, during these 4 days.
Absolutely, Bankim. So I'm not going to answer, or neither Vasant. We
Right.
won't answer right now because we're just beginning. But we can
Yeah.
assure you, you will find answers.
Right.
Because it's $1 million question, and then it's not just yours, it's all of us. And some of
Right.
us had this because of our age, and we have figured out the answers, and that's why we are here sharing that with you all. So, as I'm sure Vasant also agrees to this, we're not just sharing our knowledge, we are truly sharing our experiences, sharing the joy of figuring out what this life is all about, whether what is the purpose of life. And then we have put in either scientific terminology like evolving, or something else, maybe spiritual terminology, that's all. But yes, whatever we're going to be speaking is backed by science. And if you're interested, we can just introduce it is also backed by our scriptures. And I can tell you, we're going to probably share with many things, maybe most of our scriptures, but I can share you, it is backed by ancient wisdom, which covers all different scriptures, not just in the scriptures. So everything we're going to be speaking is backed by science and ancient wisdom. And definitely, this gray hair, the life experiences. So you'll be able to figure out the answers. Thanks for that question.
Madhuji.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah.
Your workshop is always very interesting, and I come back to your workshop to find answer to my lot of queries. What I was surprised when you initially mentioned about IPR, health, WLB, purpose of life, and technology. And technology you have given, I mean, the questionnaire you got from various people, it's only 15%. But in my opinion, it is the technology which is cluttering our mind over information load, and so much of, I think overthinking is also the result of that. And for example, Abhi, just now, Vasant ji mentioned about his grandmother and how she keeps herself busy. So what is the difference between our generation or the next generation and the older generation? They did not have this social media technology.
Yeah.
Although technology is, because of technology, we are able to attend your workshop and gain so much of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you, Madhuji. If I may, you're absolutely right. But I'm just presenting the data. Whoever has mentioned about the technology, only some people, that's all. But I agree with you. That has to be either top one or top second one. And it's a double-edged sword, technology.
Yes.
The discrimination power is within us to be able to figure out. You will get the answers. But I just want to share my personal experience with what Vasant said. And then I had a smile on my face because it's almost like he read my mind about 20 years back, whatever I was thinking, and he's presenting it right now. The reason I came back from West, I had everything. I was leading a very happy life, contented, satisfied, all of that. But still, something was missing. That's why I was touched with people who said about meaninglessness or figuring out the purpose of life. I thought I had figured out the purpose, and that purpose of our life changes as we grow older, right? And that is what had happened to me. But there is a common purpose for human beings, period. That's what we are trying to present, which is for us to be evolving. Here in this session, we are only going to be talking about evolving from health and wellness perspective. But evolving has very different facets that we need to be looking at. And one of the major things we're going to try and weave in as we go along, if there is time, but I will just mention this, and then you can start thinking from that perspective also, not just from health and well-being. One of the important aspects of evolving is to be able to utilize our potential, the innate potential that we have. All of us have so much potential that is unused, to be tapping into that potential to the fullest extent possible until our last breath. So as we go along, what do you mean? Even if you're not physically able, is it possible? Absolutely. Hopefully, we'll be able to cover, or only through such questions we will be able to. And coming back to my personal experience, I was thinking, what is it? My grandmother had nothing when compared to all the things that I'm experiencing in West. And she was a lot more happy. I was contented, but I wanted to feel that happiness in an active way. So, what was it? I started questioning, and rather than giving the answer, that is what led me to come back and to be able to do what I do, to figure out that purpose and meaning of life through what? Probably after we give at the end of this talk, what is that plus? That big question mark, that mystery question mark. And then we'll be able to connect all of this together and then see how it makes sense. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Ravish?
I think there are no more questions.
Okay.
Auntie, I
So
think
we'll move along.
shall we just take a quick 5-minute break before we go on to the next presentation, Ravish bhai?
Yes, yes. We can take a break of 5 minutes, and then after the break, we will continue.
Sure.
welcome back to the session. Vasantji, we can continue.
Yeah. We just wait for Usha aunty.
There. All right. So we've been introduced to this concept of evolving to a certain extent. Let's dive in right away to see what is it? What is it that prevents us to evolve? Because as much as knowing what helps something, we also need to know what is it that prevents us to be doing certain things, right? So let's look into what is it that prevents us to evolve. Before giving you the answer right away, I love this statement. Max Planck, if you're not familiar, he was a quantum physicist, says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. This is the most important saying, if you may. You need to keep this in mind, not only for the rest of the workshop in the next 4 days, but for the rest of your lives, irrespective of what you have expressed in the questionnaire by answering specific questions, and many of the questions that you have in your life now or in the future. If you can keep this in the back of your mind, that if how can I change the way I'm looking at this problem, how can I change the way at my personal life, how can I change the way I'm looking at what is happening in the world outside, be it may related to environment, be it may related to the climate or the political life in not just in India, everywhere for that matter, for different people, different things bother us, right? For everything from now on, can you try and make it a point to ask yourself, how can I change the way I'm looking at this issue? How can I change the way I'm looking at the problem? So the answer will be in that question. So the question you're looking for, you answer with this question. How can I change the way I'm looking at it? So this is really, really profound. And this is the main thing that has actually changed and transformed my life. When it was happening, I did not know about any of this, but through the life experiences and taking the help of evidence-based research and taking the help of understanding and going deeper into ancient wisdom, I want to make it clear that it is ancient wisdom and not just our scriptures, as much as understanding many things about life itself from our scriptures. I have, to a certain extent, gone deeper into many different religions or different cultures, for that matter, lived in different cultures and still experiencing different cultures when I travel. So all of this is coming through that experience. So let's look at this shloka. It's such a popular shloka in Bhagavad Gita, you know. Bandhuratmat manastasya enatmanatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvato. Just to put it very simply, he says, mind is your friend and mind is your enemy too. Just by changing how we are looking at things, the mind can either become our own enemy, leading to a whirlwind of negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative feelings, doubting everything, or it can help us to figure out the solution, whether at a personal life or with our own loved ones, near and dear ones, or at the issue of local community level or national level or at global level or at the level of climate itself ultimately. For everything, how can we make this mind as a friend of ours? Because you can have solutions many from different angles. When we look at the solution, when we make our mind as a friend, the solution will be different, rather than with a negative frame of mind, having the mind as our enemy. We might find solution, but it still will be different. Just to make you understand this, this is one of my favorite things I always quote. Mother Teresa was asked to attend a anti-war rally, and she got the Nobel Prize for Peace, and she said, you know what, I am all for peace. Call me for a peace rally. I will be there, but not for an anti war rally. At the outset, superficially, you think, what is the difference? It's all mean the same. What is anti war and peace? Opposite words, right? We cannot just look at it in a superficial way. I have looked at it not just that war and peace perspective, many perspectives, How do we look at it as anti war? We will be focusing many things on why we should not be going against war. What are the ill effects? We need to go deep, study, and understand what war means to be able to convince others what is anti war. Whereas you go towards peace, and then you will be looking at war from the perspective of peace. How can we bring peace? Rather than focusing on the problem of the war, you will be focusing on the solution for peace. There is a huge difference. It's all about our perception. Trust me. So, how can we make our mind as a friend or a foe? This is true. This shloka is true either from the scientific perspective or from spiritual perspective. Well, just this is one of the most important, the next couple of slides, most important thing for us to grasp, understand at an intellectual level, and put it into practice too. So why am I comparing this shloka, or how can the mind, and why should the mind be our friend or a foe, and what does that mean? See, from scientific perspective, if you look at it, I will take the example of stress. When we talk about stress, what do? We always pinpoint about the stressors that are outside of us. It could be the political setup. It could be the climate that can cause stress. It could be the traffic jam that causes stress. It could be our colleagues. It could be our health. So always we look for the stressors outside so that we can learn to manage stress. However, if we start looking at stress and understanding it is not the stressors, but how we react to the stressors is what causes stress, everything will change. And that is what I mean by whether it's from the spiritual perspective, as it says in the Gita, or from a scientific perspective. Everything is kind of within us. The problem is also within us, and the solution is also within us. It does not mean that we should not be looking for solution outside. Of course, the easiest way is to be looking for solutions outside. That is what truly is called survival mode. If we start looking at the solution from inside of us, right away we move to the quote unquote evolving mode. Whether you look at it from the spiritual side, any ancient wisdom, or from a scientific side, this is the whole crux. So now, if we look at the answers that we have given for the questionnaire, right away we will find answers to everybody's and questions. Yes, we are looking for solution. We are trying to understand ourselves. This is the crux. And this is the solution for everything. What do I mean by the problem is inside? Because the way we use our mind is to be able to react and find solution from outside. Rather than that, can we make that shift? When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at will change. Can we start looking within ourselves and see how can I figure out the solution? Yes, including solution for climate. As we go along, all of this will get unfurled, as you will see. So the whole crux of the thing is understand that the problem is inside. Yes, the stressors are outside. The triggers are outside. No doubt about it. But the problem is how I'm looking at the outside triggers and stressors. That is the problem of my mind. And the solution is also within us. Otherwise, we will always be looking for solution outside, and only some of those solutions will be answered from outside. But for everything, I can assure you, the solution is within us and can be answered from within us. Intellectually, we can understand. Even that, it's not easy to understand. But intellectually, we will understand. I'll give you one more example, the standard classic example. And then we will see how we will be able to be convinced that the solution is inside. The classic example that anybody gives, you imagine, let's say this is a thought experiment. You imagine your favorite dessert or your favorite snack if you don't have a sweet tooth, okay? Whatever it is, imagine. And imagine, now let us try and do this. Close your eyes. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. And imagine your favorite dessert or your favorite snack. Already the mouth is watering, right? And then imagine that you have taken, I will just take one example of a savory, another example of a dessert. Let's say rasmalai is your favorite dessert. You have eaten the first rasmalai. Or if it is a snack, you have eaten the first pakora. How do you like? Yes, it is good. And then we enjoy. We want more. We take the second rasmalai now. We still enjoy. And rather than taking one more pakora, we take 2 more pakoras and we still enjoy. Keep going. Start eating the third rasmalai. It's a thought experiment. You really have to feel this to make it work. Feelings are the fuel for our actions, So feel it deeply and savor the snack. Enjoy your dessert. Now you're into your 4th rasmalai. Do you think it tastes as good as the first one? Maybe at the level of the tongue, it tastes good. And you force it in. And you're into the 8th pakora. You still okay. You feel like you have had enough. But I'm going to ask you to have 2 more rasmalais and 4 more pakoras. How do you feel? Even at the level of the tongue, taste also, you're not going to welcome that. Isn't this so? And the last of the 4 pakoras, it's almost impossible to eat. What happened just now? What happened? That was your favorite food item. You thought the food was giving you that joy, that happiness. Now you figure out it is truly not the external food, but how your mind reacted to that food. The first one you enjoyed, the second maybe, third, okay. If I force you to eat the 6th one, is it possible to enjoy? So what does that tell us? It's not something what is outside of us that is either giving us joy or sorrow. But it's all about our mind, how we are looking at that issue, looking at that food item is what is causing us joy or sorrow. The problem is inside us. The solution is also inside us. That does not mean we should not be seeking solution outside. When we should stop looking for the solution outside, I will come to that later. Start looking for the solution. You will find the solution many a times. That is the easy part in life you enjoy. But the true solution, and for a long lasting solution, that solution is within us. So says science, and so says Vedanta, so says ancient wisdom. So if that is the case, let us try and understand the nature of our mind. Both Vasant and I will go into this little bit into depth and understand the nature of mind. What is the nature of a mind? Any mind. Let's say just an untrained mind, because all untrained minds behave the same way. And also all trained minds also behave the same way. When I say behave, not externally manifesting into our actions and whatnot, what happens up here at the level of the brain. All trained minds, when I say behave the same way, how does it affect at the level of brain, at the level of body is what I'm trying to say, or maybe at the level of brain, may not even be the level of the body. We'll understand as we go along. So the nature of mind is such that it acts like a pendulum going back and forth between past and future. It is hardly in the present moment, here and now and here. That's why the beginning of the session, what Vasant went through, that mindful breathing exercise actually helps us to be in the present moment. But even if it helps us to be in the present moment, how does this mind work? We look at the past with regret and future with anxiety. We might train ourselves, as Vasant helped us, with with breathing, with focusing on our breath to be in the present moment. But yet, being in the present moment, we are dissatisfied. We are not aware of our purpose and meaning of this life. And we're still focusing on little things. I'm bored. I don't have that zest to start something, but I have to force myself. What we call it as inertia, right? But yet, when we are really have an open mind and say, that inertia is only for certain things, for things that we may not like. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to weave in your answers for the questionnaire and see how it goes about. Is it because certain things I don't like? Is that why I don't want to do certain things right away? I procrastinate? Or is it just my nature? We have to be truly honest to ourselves. Many a times we know there are only few things that we like and we are okay with that. There are many things we may not like, and that's why we keep procrastinating. So if that is the case, how, even not understanding the mind at a deeper level, how can we look into this? That is what, at least this answer you will get it today. And what happens when we look at the past with regret and the future with anxiety, and whatever actions and decisions that we take in the present moment is all based on past memories and our biases that are inherent within all of us. We may not understand this, and there is nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to feel bad about it, because this is the nature of mind. Each and every one of us have these biases, and the only way out is through knowledge, to be aware of our own biases and to be able to come out of it. And especially the past memories. The past memories are stored based on the biases that we had at that time, and we are bringing those past memories in the present time. Even though we are aware of our biases, we have come out of those biases, these memories are so strong. Those memories were based on the biases, and that is affecting in the present moment. How do we deal with that? We will get to that as we go along. This is just introducing various different aspects to figure out what is that plus. Until and unless we get to that plus, it's not just health and body that contributes and our behavior that contributes to our wellness, but there is one more factor that we need to be aware of, and we need to work on that diligently. We will get to that as we go along. So even if we are in the present moment and we base our decisions, take actions based on our past memories and bias, because those memories are based on our life experiences at that time when we were not aware of our own biases. The memories are strong. The memory cannot tell that difference. So there are things that need to be done, and we will get to that as we go along. So just at this point, we will see how this mind acting like a pendulum, how can we make it stand still? Because just why should we train our mind when the mind, nature of the mind is like this, like a pendulum, always moving around, restless. It is like this. Let's say I have this in my hand. I'm reading this book or a paper, and this paper keeps constantly moving. How difficult it is to focus for me to read. It is the same way. If the mind is acting like a pendulum, not quiet, not restful, we won't be able to focus neither on the problem nor on the solution. We'll always be in the reactive mode. But there is much more to this mind that we need to understand at a deeper level what it is about that is truly preventing us. As I said, these biases. What these biases are all about? Let's go to Vasant to dive deeper into what these biases are. And again, I want to make this point clear. We don't need to be ashamed. We don't have to feel bad about having these biases, because Everybody without any exception has these biases. So let us listen to this, because it is tough for us to understand our own biases, but have an open mind and be kind to yourself and be compassionate to yourself. And as Vasant has said, keep relating to your own mind and to your own biases. And as you figure out your own biases, you feel like sharing. Keep that, and then you will find answers as we go along, because we're only going to touch upon these biases right now, and we're going to go deeper into these in the next 2 days, and you will find all the answers on the fourth day. With that, I hand over it to Vasant to take it forward.
Sure. Thanks, Auntie, for that thought experiment, particularly because I feel that I myself am going through that thought experiment for the first time. It was extremely interesting. That also raised certain aspects in me about certain things about self-regulation specific to food aspect. Okay, so Auntie has enabled us to dive more deeper into trying to question ourselves about the meaning and purpose of life, and also the more deeper aspects of survive evolve. And the question that we would like to further dwell upon is, what is it that prevents us to evolve? Evolving, of course, on a day-to-day basis with our day-to-day mundane tasks, as well as evolving as we are going through our life's journey throughout till our last breath. Most of these aspects, we have heard of it, but let's try and look at it fresh, completely from the point of view of the latest research in the field of neuroscience and positive psychology, and what it has to say, and which we also can see and relate it to what we have heard or read from our scriptures. One of the most and fundamental neuroscience concept, when I say scientific concept, it's of course applicable to one and all. It's applicable to irrespective of the person's caste, creed, color, gender, age, geographic situation, position in the society, whether the person is a prime minister or a pauper, a corporate executive or a homemaker, a social worker or a scientist, or some other person. This neuroscience concept is applicable to one and all, to everybody who is alive on this planet. And this concept is called as negativity bias. What this concept primarily means is all of us, all our brains are in some sense wired towards negativity. So negative situations, circumstances, life experiences tend to stick in our brains for a lot longer period, and maybe sometimes more deeper than the equal amount of positive experience in our lives. For example, even today, when we sort of look at the world in a more objective and a more neutral way, there are lots of small positive things that are happening around us, around our society, around our community, and things like that. But a small negative thing that may be happening, let's say in our community, maybe with regards to waste or with regards to water management, something that is affecting all of us, tends to occupy our brain a lot longer period of time than so many equal amount of positive things happening within our community. Or same with ourselves. If I were to give my own personal example, if I'm standing to catch a bus, the first thought that comes up is, oh, why are there buses going in the reverse direction more than the direction in which I want to take the bus? But at the same time, if we look at it statistically, buses are going in the both directions. It's just that the thoughts that pop up at that point of time because of my want to quickly reach the destination, or maybe because of lack of patience, is why are the buses more in the reverse direction? And the same thing happens when I go and stand on the opposite side of the road. I look at the buses going in the opposite direction. So all of our brains are essentially wired for this, and there is a reason for this. There is a evolutionary reason for this negativity bias. Usha aunty will be covering that tomorrow when we talk about the structure of the brain and the mind. As aunty had mentioned, each and everything that happens in this world begins with a thought. And these negative thoughts that happen to all of us are essentially automatic. They just come up on its own. We don't have to make any efforts towards those thoughts, but they are just automatic. They are just a response to maybe our past memories. To give an example, let's say we have seen a certain person with certain physical looks, maybe a tattoo in their hands or their legs or their face with certain hairstyle, and we get certain kinds of thoughts about that person, which happens much faster, um, before we get to analyze and question our thoughts. Now, that could be because of our infamiliarity with that kind of a person with those kind of physical features, or it could be because of some certain past memory when we had seen a certain person with typically the teenagers that we see today, certain persons with those features, we tend to look at them saying that, oh, these are spoiled brats or spoiled kids. But when we analyze them, we could say that, oh, these are just the looks, these are just the current era in which the attire or the facial looks are changing continuously, just as we have changed compared to our own parents or grandparents. Just one example for us to think about these automatic negative thoughts that just happen to us without any reason. Now, these negative thoughts, automatic negative thoughts, they tend to stick in our brains more like a Velcro, where it's very difficult to pull them apart. While the equal intensity of positive thoughts or positive events that are happening in our life, the home that we have, or the food and the clothing, shelter, all the material comforts that we have today compared to our previous generation, we tend to just ignore them, or don't give them enough importance, sometimes even take it for granted. And these positive thoughts, they come sporadically, but they only come with a little bit of effort, and they don't stay in our brain for long. It's like our Teflon coated tawa, where they just slip away into our lives. And essentially, we are frustrated because we do not know how to overcome this negativity or negative bias that we're all born with, either in ourselves or in others. Now, these unchecked or unexamined, unquestioned automatic negative thoughts that happen to all of us, over a period of time, these can affect us in various dimensions of our life. Not just health, not just our work or productivity at work or relationships at work, but even our relationships with our most intimate, near and dear ones, with our spouses or with our children or with our grandparents or with our neighbors. Somebody whom we had liked and loved earlier, but for some reason, today we are questioning, oh, whether I really like. We are focusing more on the differences between the people, maybe, rather than the common aspects. And this has happened not over one or two incidences. Probably it has happened because of our negativity bias of excessively focusing, which happens automatically, over these negative experiences. And this indeed is a major cause of various mental health issues, a major cause of imbalance of our chemicals in our brain, starting from, simple things like anxiety, constantly being in a worrying mode, a wallowing mode, worrying about the future, resulting into maybe clinical or subclinical depression. And not able to live our life more holistically, not able to live our life with enthusiasm and joy on a day-to-day basis. And as Anti had mentioned, these automatic negative thoughts, when they sort of snowball into us, we tend to look at the past events more as regrets, more with a feeling of guilt, more with the feeling of saying that why did this happen to me? Rather than trying to learn from any of these past events or learning from any of these past memories. As a result of this, our thoughts also sway into the future more with anxiety and pessimism, more constantly worrying about, oh, okay, if so and so things happen to me again, what should I be doing? Or as long as it remains at that, it's fine. But if we are looking at future more with that anxiety, we are likely to get more of anxiety snowballing into us. The result of all this is our present moment or our present is not satisfactory. So the mindful breathing practice was one of the simple and quick way of trying to bring our attention back to here and now. Breath is a very powerful tool that all of us have till we die. And that's a nice way to keep anchoring ourselves back onto the present moment. Now, while we all understand this about trying to be more positive, everybody has told us right from our childhood, but at the same time, we see that this negativity bias in ourselves. And as a result of this, we tend to give more of excuses to ourselves, saying that, well, this is the way I've been born. Blaming it on parents, grandparents, blaming it on genes, with whatever limited we understand with the research in the field of genetics. Having said that, even today, the latest research in the field of epigenetics has proven beyond doubt, saying that the manifestation or the expression of the genes is essentially dependent on our internal environment and our external environment. So to a large extent, our internal environment, our thoughts, feelings, and actions are something to a large extent can be within our control. Or we give the reason saying that I'm like this because of so and so external person, because of my spouse, parent, or friend, or a boss. And we are trying to run away from the external situations rather than trying to face it as to what's happening internally within us. The consequences of these automatic negative thoughts or these thought patterns which get formed over a period of time is we want to change, but we cannot change easily. We tend to shun away from our responsibilities. We're not proactive in terms of planning in a healthier way for the future. We cannot learn new things. We cannot remain as a lifelong learner. Yes, there are changes that are happening to the technology, to the world outside, to the way we interact with our world, right from the way we order things and so on. But somewhere we have lost our discerning ability as to how do we self-regulate ourselves rather than becoming over-dependent on technology. And that's primarily because of our ability to be self-aware about what's happening to us on a moment-to-moment basis. The result at the end of it is we cannot be what we really want to be. Yes, we want to be joyful, enthusiastic, satisfied, contented, having zest. But a genuinely inquiring person can see that it is sort of declining despite all the material comforts. And as Auntie had said, there is actually no external magic pill that we can pop and to overcome this automatic negative thoughts in us or the negativity bias in us. It's a continuous process. While yes, we will take external help through material or non-material means, But at the same time, realizing fully that they're just going to help us to overcome the current crest if we are going through. But a long lasting, sustained thing is essentially being able to live with that heightened awareness and being aware of all the neuroscience concepts that we are going to go through over the next 3 days. And that's essentially overcoming it through knowledge. There are some other consequences. No need to go through in detail in that time. Now, the saving grace with this negativity bias is most of these automatic negative thoughts are actually false. They are primarily a result of our unexamined thoughts in the past, which are projecting into the future, or unexamined memories into our past. Memories, of course, always in the past, which are projecting into the future. The science has said that typically a human being goes through about anything between 70,000 to 1 lakh thoughts a day. And 70 to 80% of those thoughts are automatic negative thoughts. And out of that automatic negative thoughts, the good news is 70 to 80% of them are false. They are purely our mental projections of past unhealthy experiences into the future. But to figure out those 70 to 80% of those thoughts and also have those 20% which are needed for our safety does require certain powers of mind, which to be developed continuously, which will be covered tomorrow. So when I say false, they are real in a sense that they do affect our feelings, but they are false because they are just our mental projections, because of the way we are at that point of time, our status of being at that point of time. Okay, so this was one of the first neuroscience concept on automatic negative thoughts. Shall we take questions, Auntie, now?
Probably we'll take it at the end. We will at least cover a little bit because it's the first day. We have lost quite a bit of time.
Sure.
So they can put the questions on the chat box. And you can take a look at the questions even when I start. And then if that's something imperative, we can answer it right away. At least let us cover part of this, the next
Sure.
session. Yeah, in this session. Okay, let me start sharing the. Okay. So now that we understand a little bit about biases, we just want to give you a very quick fix, day one, and then we will see how to go about understanding this quick fix and also having long lasting solution, because the solution for this negativity bias is just intellectual understanding, not just understanding, but intellectual conviction. And not just intellectual conviction, to be able to change our belief system. Until and unless we change our belief system, yes, it is possible for me to do it, I'm going to do it, it will not change. Whatever we are trying to change in our lives, first we need to have an intellectual understanding. Along with that, the emotions and feelings. And along with that, the belief system that we can do it has to change. Until and unless that happens, no matter how many solutions that we give, how to do this, It will not help until and unless we change our belief system, saying that it is possible for me to do it. And we will cover this again next 2 days to help you with the intellectual conviction as to how is it possible for us to change anything in our lives. So the quick fix for this is, again, the mind is like a pendulum going back and forth. And when it is in the present moment, we keep coming back to the present moment. And then we keep thinking, oh, I should not have done this. I should have done this. All of that, right? Should haves or should have nots. All of that has to drop. Whatever it may be, whatever we did in the past, it might be a mistake, it might be a different way of looking at it at that time, does not matter. Just stop all the reasons we are giving for ourselves based on the past. That is, in the present moment, we are giving those reasons. Drop all the should haves and just do the right thing. This is the quick fix. And then you will say, how is it possible? I'm trying to start a new lifestyle. I want to be able to meditate in the morning, go for walks in the evening. Just saying, do the right thing. How is it possible? Remember, this is a quick fix. Until and unless you have an intellectual conviction of this, not just an understanding. Now, right now, it is only understanding. Then you have to be convinced. And then you need to change your belief system. Then it happens. So, and also when I say do the right thing, it is not just about thinking about the right thing. We keep thinking, yes, I want to meditate in the morning. Yes, I want to go for the walk in the evening. Not just thinking about the right thing, not just feeling or saying the right thing. It is all about doing the right thing each time and every time. The doing part is extremely important. This is where, when it comes to doing, our negativity bias comes in the way, because the next 45 seconds, this concept, what I'm going to be talking about, why is it not possible for us to do the right thing? Let us understand this through understanding the biases. You know, these ants, the automatic negative thoughts, there was a picture of ants which just showed only one type of ants, but there are several types of ants. We don't need to go into all the different types of negative thoughts, but understand this. These negative thoughts, what did we say? The mind is like a pendulum, right? They won't allow us to be in the present moment. Keep going back and forth between past and future. And whenever it is in the present moment, either it is dissatisfied or not be able to do certain things. In other words, if I just have to put it simply, the ants' automatic negative thoughts, which is the result of the negativity bias that all of us have, prevent us to be in the present moment and prevent us to be in the present moment in a mindful way. But why? Why are we focusing so much on the present moment? See, as I said, it's not about thinking or feeling, it is about doing. Look at it this way. I'm going to make a very bold statement saying that there is nothing like past or future. Past and future are our mental constructs only. What do I mean by that? Again, now don't think about the grammar of my language here. For a reason, I'm using a very colloquial language without minding to my grammar. Then you will get it right away. When I say there is nothing like past or future, yes, there was yesterday, there will be tomorrow. What do you mean? Yes, there was yesterday, there will be tomorrow. We need to learn from the past. We need to plan for the future. And even learning from the past, planning for the future is all at the mental level. And I'm not talking at that level. When yesterday was happening and tomorrow when it is going to happen, what will it be? When yesterday was happening, it was today. And tomorrow, when it is going to happen, it will be today. Forget about the grammar. Right? What do I mean by that statement? I mean, it is all about doing, the action part. When yesterday was happening, whatever we were doing, we can only do in the present moment. We cannot do anything in the past. When we were doing in the past, it was present moment. So now that quick fix about do the right thing makes so much sense. And that present moment is really, really important because we can think positively, we can feel positively, but doing positive in the present moment is the most important aspect. And the negativity bias or the automatic negative thoughts or the ants prevent us to be in the present moment and to be doing the right thing in the present moment. So whatever it is, whatever you're trying to change, focus on the doing. Focus on the actions. Focus on changing your habits. Focus on changing your experience. This is what I want you to get from this negativity bias. So, with that, again, the same shloka, how once we understand this, this is the crux of making our mind our friend or our enemy. As we go along, we will be going into that into greater detail. So let us take very quickly. I was talking about this key symptom cycle. This is also based on a research that happened in US, and this is the data was collected by many patients in hospitals, patients of all different diseases and disorders were admitted. These were all inpatients in hospitals, and their symptoms were the symptoms were understood. The questionnaire was given, and whatever symptoms that they were going through, they collected the data on the symptoms of the inpatients of people of various different diseases and disorders. Mind you, that's why it's a meta study. And literally thousands and thousands of data from patients' data were collected and analyzed. What do we see? Here, irrespective of the disease, these are the symptoms, major symptoms. These were common for majority, significant people or patients that were admitted to the hospitals. Mind you, there are no arrows in the cycle. It's not that pain leading to tense muscles, leading to difficult emotions, none of that. These are just symptoms that were, the data was analyzed this way. So irrespective of whatever disease, and those inpatients, they complained about depression or anxiety. Why did this happen? What will happen in the future? Or repetitive thoughts, overthinking, intrusive thoughts, repetitive thoughts. We can just label as a lot of negative thought patterns. And tense muscles were again one of the common features, along with shortness of breath or shallow breathing and fatigue, physical fatigue. One of the most important things that you need to know, many of this led to difficult emotions, what these patients were going through. So understand this cycle. And now see, all of this happens not only because they were patients, they were inpatients admitted in the hospitals. These are all very common things. We go through this in our life. We don't have to have any major illness, any major disorder. We don't need to be admitted to the hospital. Instead of a disease, change that to a situation. For somebody, what is happening outside with the climate or the political situation might cause all of this, or it could be an argument, or it could be a difficult relationship. we go through very similar symptoms in life. So these symptoms in life is not just because of some illness that we go through, but it is life itself will cause all of these things. This is extremely important for us to understand. So what does that mean? If you look at it, any disease or situation will lead to difficult emotions, leading to pain. If it is just pain, physical pain, or even mental pain, difficult emotion is nothing but a mental pain. It is okay. But what do? We relive this pain. That's why a saying, pain is inevitable. We cannot avoid pain as long as we are humans. But that suffering that we go through because of the pain, whether it's because of physical pain or mental pain, what does that mean, suffering? It's a scientific term, technical term, not an English word that we use, suffering. What does that mean? We relive that pain. We overthink about what is happening in the life situation. We have repetitive thoughts about whatever we are facing, a difficult relationship, financial situation, or what is happening outside in the external world. We keep thinking about it, overthinking, repetitive thoughts. What causes the pain, physical pain or emotional pain? But when we relive this, the physical pain may be gone, but because we are reliving it, that is what leads to suffering. We don't realize, especially if we are sensitive, especially if we are going through difficult situation in our lives because of internal reasons, whether because of reasons within the family or because of reasons outside in the outside world. This is what is causing us suffering. So how do we end this suffering? How do we come out of this suffering? You will get this answer on the 4th day. We will wait for that. This is all at the intellectual level, and we will see. Rather than taking questions, I will take the next 5 to maximum 10 minutes, finish off. What is this plus? We are waiting for this plus. We understand the mind-body connection leads to wellness and also our behavior. But what is the plus feature that we're talking about? We're going to get into this, and then I'll conclude with few quotes and then take up the questions. So I've said mind-body connection plus, right? What is that? Plus, you say, we understand physical health is very important, also our mental health. But what is that plus feature? What is that big question mark? Whether we have realized it or not, we will get to that. Before that, we think about all of this. We can have better well-being going through. I need to keep better, not just exercise, get into some sports or into music therapy, art therapy, yoga therapy, or there are many apps these days. Maybe I can use this, download those apps, and then I can be better. Or I can get into spirituality, figure out all the answers. Yes, this is all true. These are all plus things. But even much more than any of this, even if you're not into any of this, if you get into the next one, what is that? Is what is the crucial thing, ultimate mantra for well-being. And that plus feature is nothing but our interpersonal relationships. Whether we realize this or not, our interpersonal relationships are the most important thing, even more than our health and wealth. Our health will subside, or health gets affected, especially as we get older. Wealth, we're not at a stage that wealth we need to be concerned. We are all mostly comfortable. But much more than health and wealth. When I say health, it's both body and mind. Much more than that, it is the interpersonal relationship with our loved ones, with our family, especially with spousal relationships, or with our children and grandchildren. Familial relationships are the most important aspect, because even if we get old, even if we do not have as much wealth as we would like it to be, if our interpersonal relationships are meaningful, are purposeful at a deeper level, we can handle any situation. Otherwise, if our relationships are going through tough times, if we are having difficult relationships, no amount of health and wealth will correct that. This is where either we get into not understanding the purpose of life, or looking at life not having much meaning to whatever we are doing. We might be successful, we might be thriving, we might be on the top list of wealthy people in our community, does not matter. It's the interpersonal relationships. If we have to pick one feature that is the surest way for us to evolve, it is improving and having meaningful interpersonal relationships. Extremely important for our well-being. So the next 3 days, whatever we're going to be talking about, whether we look at the anatomy of the brain or the how the mind works, many neuroscience concepts which we're going to get into tomorrow, keep connecting all of that to the relationships. If you're having good relationships, can you make it better? Because many times good is what prevents us to be better. Don't settle for good, go for something better. And look at the relationship issue of relationship from the point of evolving. That is where you will get the solution. Because don't look at the relationship as it's the other person that I'm not able to adjust, deal with. Yes, the trigger may be outside, but focus on yourself, your own mind, how you're reacting to the relationship. Keep focusing. The solution is within you. Focus on that. So, answer to this well-being, ultimate well-being, it begins from a thought, and it has to end in quality of our interrelationship, and it has to start from now, because we don't realize, as I said, past and future are our mental constructs. The only thing that we have is this present moment, now and here and now. So which means whatever we are trying to do, just focus on this moment and work and train for this moment. So the mind training is all about training for one moment at a time. And which also means evolving is also one moment at a time. In other words, evolving is on a moment to moment to moment basis. And that has to start from the thought. Begin with the thought, it has to end with better relationship, and it has to happen now. And this is the way to evolve. And to conclude about interpersonal relationships, whether we look at it from a scientific perspective or from a spiritual perspective, both, we need to understand the interconnectedness of all beings and non-beings too, interconnectedness of all things, and also the interdependence of all things. We're going to delve into this little deeper tomorrow, But today, let us understand this through a few quotes which are so meaningful. And we're going to understand the science behind these quotes tomorrow. So I'm just going to read out the quotes to you and say what we can understand about interconnectedness and interdependence of things. What makes us human is our interconnectedness amongst people. It's our ability to form and maintain those relationships. The interpersonal relationships is nothing but the barometer by which we call ourselves human. Life does not make any sense without interdependence. We need each other. And the sooner we learn that, the better for us all. We can understand this rather than going through relationship with people. Let's understand this interdependence through this flower. It could be a tulip, a rose. When we look at the flower, we just enjoy the beauty. Can we go deeper and see what is this flower? That flower is not just a flower. That the presence of that flower and our awareness of that flower is dependent on many things which may not even be aware of until now. Let us start being aware of the things that this flower is made up of. The flower is not made up of, as we learned in our school days, petals, sepals, and a stem, and pollen, and the stamen, and the piston. None of that. That is from a logical perspective. Important. That is from a reductionist approach. Let us look at this flower and understand this flower from a holistic perspective. The flower is the flower because of the plant. The flower is the flower because of the plant and the soil. The flower is the flower because of the plant, because of the soil, and because of all the 5 elements: the water, the sunlight. So the flower is the flower because of the plant, because of the soil, because of the cloud, because of the sun, because of the air. Can we look at this flower from this aspect of interdependence? And now, for your homework for today, try to look at your relationship from that interdependence point of view. We are what we are because of others around us, whether physically or mentally. We are what we are because of our experiences with the people that we are living today, right now. And we are what we are because of the people who are not even in our life right now. They have passed away. They are dead and gone, but they are very much alive in our minds. How are we looking at those relationships? How can we make our mind as our friend? Looking at, remember Mother Teresa's statement, pro-peace rally, not an anti-war rally. That statement has significance here. Can we look at our relationships from the pro-peace rally perspective rather than from the anti-war rally perspective? So with that, couple more quotes. Interdependence is, can anybody read? That is and ought to be as much the ideal of man as self-sufficiency. Man is a social being. We pay so much attention on self-sufficiency, whether at a personal level, family level, at a business level. We always focus on self-sufficiency. Again, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. That is the beginning, self-sufficiency. Can we move from self-sufficiency to self-reliance? Self-reliance or self-resilience. Think about that for a moment. How can we be resilient, not just be self-sufficient? How can we be resilient in our lives? We will cover that as we go along, because being resilient is not just for ourselves. It's also, resilience means it is about understanding the interconnectedness and interdependence of people. And just what is that resilience? We know what resilience is. Going back to our old ways. If we are facing some issues right now, personally, relationship wise, financially, whatever, we think about going back to what it was before. True resilience is not just going back to what it was before, but being better than before. So here's a Japanese Zen master, and let's see what he talks about. One second. You cannot separate any part from the whole. Interdependence rules the cosmic order. And with this, I would like to leave with few more questions for you to wonder about and ponder on these quotes before you come back tomorrow for the next session. Why do you keep repeating patterns in interpersonal relationships? And we know we have those emotional buttons. Somebody says something and our emotional buttons get pushed. Why do we do that? Our brains remain on an unending hunt to both find and make new patterns. We will learn this tomorrow. Brain is a pattern making machine. It has to be efficient. So patterns are being efficient. So the brain goes into an unending loop and hunt to find and make patterns. So that's why we keep repeating the patterns in our relationships. And again, this is my personal affirmation and a quote saying that I pray for this. May every moment of my life and the life of others around me be one of wisdom, inner peace, and happiness leading to love. Because earlier, love is a feeling and an emotion. We just know how to love, but that love has to ripen. And that the ripening of that love can happen through not just as an emotion or a feeling, when we combine that with knowledge or the wisdom. And when that happens, that inner peace sets in, leading to happiness. Or we can say peace and happiness are two sides of the same coin. And when that happens, that leads to love, it's a totally different state. And let us try and delve deeper into this and understand this in the next 3 days. And we will find the final answer on the 4th day. Thank you. We can, I'll stop this and then we can take questions if you have. Ravish.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you, Usha ma'am and Vasant bhai. If we can extend the session to 5 to 10 minutes more, we can take few questions immediately if any participant would like to ask. If anyone has any question related to today's session, please
Are there questions in the chat box, Ravish?
Yeah, there are a few statements. Sandhya ji has asked two questions. One was when you gave the example of Rasmalai, is it mind or over full belly telling us? Is it the mind or the over full belly telling us? And the second question is, are we born with a negative bias?
I didn't understand the first one, over full belly telling. Maybe we can see the context. But are we born with a negative bias? Yes, we're all born with that. To different extents, based on our genes, it has a genetic significance, or that is from the scientific perspective. And if you have to bring in our scriptural perspective, if somebody is already evolved, they will be born with less biases, so they don't have to work so much. But without any exception, we are all born with that, because it does have an evolutionary significance. It has a positive effect in trying to save us from danger. And that is why the reason for the negativity bias. However, we hardly have any danger right now, but the bias is towards many other things that are actually will affect us, and it will prevent us to evolve. Yes, I'm again saying in a very conceptual level. As we go along, we'll take examples, and then I would also want you to think about it. But rather than making it a cliffhanger, let me just go a little bit deeper and explain. The negativity bias started from millions of years, as humans, as we developed, evolved as a species, Homo sapiens species, right? When the cavemen were there, they had to be very careful about the environment and whatnot, to be able to teach their progeny, their children, what is safe and what is not safe in the environment. And that is where what is not safe, they would teach in a very different way. Otherwise, for example, while they were hunting for food, instead of getting food, they would become prey for the predator. So they had to remember this and teach this to their children. And that teaching, again, it's all just like what we call muscle power. That means the genes have changed when we learn things from generation to generation. So that is how, as human species, that negativity bias, nobody has identified this gene. And even if we identify it, it won't help, I can assure you right now. But to understand, it is in our genes. So as species, as families, if we have developed ways and means to overcome this bias, that will be passed on to the future generations too. But anytime mutations can happen, so either in a positive way or in a negative way. But the shortest answer is yes, we are all born with this negativity bias, and we need to be aware of it, have this knowledge, and only it is the knowledge that will get us out of this bias. This bias is nothing but ignorance. Because of ignorance, we are behaving like this. What is the antidote for ignorance? It's the knowledge. And that knowledge has to be put into action. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Usha ma'am. So I think we can conclude today's session. Thank you,
Thank you.
to all the participants. Thank you, Usha ma'am, and thank you, Vasant bhai. We'll continue
you.
with the workshop tomorrow.